if you feel like you don't know who you are, if you feel like you don't know where you belong, to me, that's one of the most scariest places that someone can exist because you feel like you are not allowed to exist.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're not allowed to exist, then it's just very dangerous.
Hello, all, and welcome to Marsha, the podcast. I'm your host, Marsha Molinari, and you are here listening to the podcast that brings true and heartfelt human connection. I believe if you don't know about it, you can't care about it. And that's why we're here today. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Marsha. I have a very, very special guest, a beautiful soul, a friend, and her name is Logan Browning. And she happens to be an actress, singer, director, all the things, right?
Yeah.
You've received 2 individual NAACP awards for Best Actress.
Nominations, but I don't care if you say awards. We can let that be a fact all of a sudden.
Okay, we'll manifest it.
Yeah, we'll manifest
It's coming. And I've known you for a while, for, what do you say?
At least like a decade.
A decade plus.
Yeah.
We met through our friend Skylar. Hey, Sky. But let's talk about the beginning of Logan. And I know you started off at a very young age, and I was really surprised. Like 14 is super young, and I kind of started thinking to myself, where was I at 14? And to be honest, I was really just like goofy. I think I was still being like a wizard or a witch, and watching like Animaniacs and all the things. So to like where does that start for you? Like being in a professional business at such a young age is like something to wrap your head around as a child.
Right.
You know?
I don't think I thought about it like as much when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like when I was 14, this was just
fun.
what I was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
You love to do it.
I think when you're that age, you're not thinking about like the consequence of your choice.
Right.
You're really present and you're really in it. And now I look back and I go, I did a lot. Oh wow,
Yeah.
that was a lot to have, because my family for the most part stayed in Georgia, and I came to LA at 14.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
and did you come with like a caretaker or what would that be? Like
Undertaker.
Did you come with an Undertaker? Y'all, I came in hard as a child.
My godfather lived in San Francisco, and he moved down to be my guardian, and we lived in an apartment in Pasadena. And then a year later, one of my older brothers became my guardian, lived in that same apartment in Pasadena. And my parents would alternate coming to visit me, and like my younger brother would come to visit me. But yeah, it was
was that lonely, or didn't notice because you're probably working, but
no, I noticed that it was lonely. I definitely did. Like my 14th year, I was very excited because I had this opportunity to do something that I was like, I felt like I had to say yes for every other 14-year-old person.
They didn't have maybe that
Yeah.
opportunity. And it is exciting. I mean, I was very interested in acting at a super young age. And I remember being on the playground and this is just like school in like a small town. I grew up in like Central California after we came down from the Bay Area. And I remember being 12 and on like swinging on a swing set with my lines. And I thought it was just because nobody else was doing it. At least, you know, I'm sure in LA, like, yeah, there's like kids that are in the industry and it's normal. But for me, I was the only star on the playground and super excited about it. So I understand like that probably was like exciting, but then like the back end lonely.
I can totally see that. I can see like little you being the star of the playground, like in your own movie. I can see that.
Yeah, I was definitely always like, I have to rehearse for what no one else knew. But I do love like that I found that outlet and awareness for the love of acting because I was alone myself a lot, not even by choice of career, not that I had one at that young age like yourself, but there was a lot of moments where like I think my imagination had to kick in really early. And is that how you found acting?
My mom had me in dance as a kid, and I loved dance. And I was just a natural like ham and performer. I think there are people in the world who, I think there are so many different people who end up becoming professional actors or actors for stage, et cetera. But
it's
like,
in them.
yeah, and it's different. Like some people, like someone else kind of brings it out, and then some people just have this thing where you're like, I am just drawn to tell a story, to be the person that, like, when the reason I wanted to start acting was I would watch the Disney Channel, and I remember being like, oh my gosh, they're my friends,
Right?
like they're my buddies, they're in my living room, and I wanted to be that. Like I want to be people's friend.
Yeah.
So that was my impetus for wanting to do
acting. Oh, I love that. Like, sorry, I was just like going back to my childhood again.
It's good. Like when you talk about these things, you have these images you can't even get away from.
Yeah.
You think about being a kid and you just have like when I say Disney Channel, I think about like, where was I when I was watching? I was sitting at home, I'm in my living room, I'm with my brother, and like, it's after school. You can't help but do that.
And was there someone that said after like dance class and all the things like, you need to be an actress, or did you audition for something in LA that kind of led you out here?
So I was in Georgia, and I was in this program called oh my gosh, Barbizon.
Yes, girl. I know all about Barbizon. I think I signed up for that too, and it was like
literally everyone did.
There was a Barbizon, but right before that, it was like Robert
Powers.
Stop. John Robert Powers.
Everyone knows.
Oh my God! And they would just set up in these towns, and you would, for the most part, they were there to take your money, really.
100%.
To be honest, like
sorry,
they're not around.
I enjoyed.
Anymore,
they are. Oh my God, they are 1,000% around. I had someone.
Maybe the formula changed.
I don't know, but someone came up to me. She's an actress, and she was catering at an event, and like I was chatting with her, and she was like, "Yeah, I went to IMTA, which is the thing that Barbizon sent me to. It was like this competition. They still have it. I was asking her all these questions.
Oh, wow.
They still have it at the Westin Bonaventure downtown.
Okay.
And she's like, yeah, they have you up there as celebrity alumni. And I was like, get out.
Stop.
Because I remember going there, like Ashton Kutcher was up there, and I was like, oh my God, I want to be like Ashton.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm up there.
He was discovered through like a modeling agency thing. That's really cool.
This was it.
Yeah.
It still exists.
It still exists. And we all have our teachers and people that lead us down the path, to what we're going to do. That's cool.
Are you thinking about joining Barbizon
Well,
now?
I know. I just imagine you walking in like, and you're like, I'm here to speak. I've got something to say.
Well, my mom had me in Barbizon mostly because they taught you how to walk, how to put on makeup, how to sit, how to do everything. Like they did have acting classes and stuff like that. And also she wanted me to make friends.
Yeah.
And so honestly, I think it was her version of charm school. I was a tomboy, and like I had all brothers.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I could see that. Just like I think it was opposite for me. I think I had to be de-charmed in a sense. I come from a really like religious background, and I know my mom made me live with my uncle because he had a son. And it was kind of one of those things like, let's man you up, and just never really worked at all.
I'm sorry.
I know. Well, more for them because they didn't get the result they wanted. You know what I mean? But that's interesting. I often wonder if I know why I loved acting because of the imagination part I said, and like just finding a friend. I mean, I know at a super young age, I was left alone a lot. My mom wasn't active in like what we wanted to do. So like if I wanted to find something to do, like I went up and signed up for gymnastics class by myself. And then later brought her, and she would sign the paperwork, but I would do all the work ahead of time. Like I signed up for martial arts by myself, and then would have her come, and then I would also make sure I had jobs too, like babysitting at 12, like nonstop after school, and just to pay for those kind of things that I knew early on if I wanted something, I'd have to do it myself.
Then we had like a similar kind of upbringing, because that's very independent and very...
Yeah, I think it's wild to me that I had that awareness when I look back. Like, I really took charge and didn't want to add any more stress to my mom, what she had going on.
That's really cool. I mean, I don't often meet other people who at a young age, like for instance, when I was 14 and I moved to LA, I was homeschooling. The way I say it is I was homeschooling myself. I wasn't. I was at home and I would like do my lessons at home solo.
Yeah.
And then once a week I would go to this space that I would have a tutor. And I would have to test out of each subject. But I wasn't making friends. The only
Yeah.
place I made friends was at church because I wasn't in school. So I would walk, as when I lived in Pasadena, I would walk down through Old Town to this church, and I made all these great friends. Like that's when I started being more adventurous on my own. I started going on these like mission trips to Mexico, and I'm like, what? Why
Oh, wow.
not?
Yeah, let's take it there.
Yeah.
For sure. I know I did a lot of things in church, and I don't know if I found it easier than school to make friends there because a lot of kids in church were mean as well. Like, you kind of like thought or would think that the God aspect would, make kids nicer, but it was brutal at the same time because we're always being sent to like Jesus camp. And the uncle I lived with was a pastor, but also totally different at home. So it was like, I kind of just kept, I don't know if I was supposed to see this, but I would see two different sides of the church. A very loving and beautiful side of, people making connections and people helping each other out. But then there was just also like a dark side, which is why like when I decided like this isn't right for me, like in high school, and I'm not going back to church for myself. I know the Bible inside out, all the things like, but I just kind of made it a path for myself to be more spiritual and take what I've learned and just be kind to people.
It's a very common thing, I think. Like, I definitely went to lots of Christian camps. I enjoyed them. I mean, like, also because we were even younger than 14, my brother and I would go, and it was like a sleepaway camp. So for 2 weeks,
let's go.
I mean, like, we loved it.
I remember crying when I had to leave this camp called Science. It was called SciCon. It was a science camp. And to have that close-knit group for even 2 weeks, I mean, I was bawling like if I was leaving a family member. Going to finally make a connection. So speaking about that, about imagination and like not having my mom around, like I had a mop as a best friend at one point.
Oh my gosh, you went full Wilson.
Yeah, like that. And then, yeah, totally.
Did the mop have a name? Was it just mop?
Tina.
Yeah,
I was obsessed with Tina Turner at the time. But so everyone would leave, and mop was kind of like a doll, like the end of it was like hair for me, and I would braid it, and then like even I specifically remember my mom like dumping the mop into like a bucket, and I was like, mop's drowning. Like, mop's drowning. And my mom would be like, why is the mop out? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like,
wait, it's so unsanitary that you were playing with the mop.
Well, now I think about that, totally gross, like hands in hair, flipping it around, maybe putting like hair ties in it or something like that. But I always think about mop because what mop did was give me like this amazing imagination to create worlds, that is different than my circumstance. I mean, I can go to a bank and I'll imagine a full-on ninja, like something like blockbuster movie thing happening, just sitting there.
It could happen.
Right. But I think it also like makes time more beautiful when you can imagine, like sitting at the DMV. Who wants to sit at the DMV? But, with an imagination, it could be quite fun.
I actually still don't, though. I renewed my license online just now.
Oh,
it's an
no.
option.
Yeah, they can do that now. I'm so happy for that. Totally. Well, so what I really wanted to get into with, and I thought a lot about this and about how young you started off in acting and watching your interviews and the different types of things about acceptance and belonging. I know for myself, it was always hard to find a space where I belonged. My family didn't really tell me like where I came from, like culturally, ethnically. Like I said, my mom wasn't around a lot. I know that my 23andMe reads like John Smith and Pocahontas. Like I'm 39% American Indian and then 50% European.
Oh, wow.
Which my mom didn't even know about. She goes, "What else are we?" You know, kind of thing. But and then definitely like a melting pot of things. So like I remember being in school in Oakland, and my stepdad, who's black, he was like, I came home and I was like, everyone's teasing me and they keep calling me white boy. And he goes, next time they tease you, tell them you're paper sack brown. Just throw them off, because, you know, like the paper sack kind of matched my skin tone. And I found that interesting that he was like, you're not black, you're not white. Just tell them you're paper sack brown. And I was like, oh, okay, well,
Why did he say that?
Just because that was like kind of the tone of my skin, more tan than, you know, just white.
Have you like thought about that?
I just thought about that now, what he told me. He goes, just tell him you're paper sack brown.
It's a very, it's something that's like a bit derogatory, like because a brown paper bag has been used.
I don't know.
Yeah,
this.
so it's very interesting he said that to you, because it's been used in a lot of ways to like separate people.
Really?
Yeah.
So maybe it was coming from a place for him, you know, something that he learned. But that was like the only defense I remember and advice given, because I would be chased all the time. I didn't belong to any one group.
That's hard.
And so I remember my sister and I kids would follow us immediately. We got out of class. We would have our lunch underneath the bleachers in the auditorium, like the stairs, like this small, and us fitting inside a small space, and we'd wait for the bell to ring and we'd come out. And yeah, for her, it was really hard as well, finding a group for us to click with, because Oakland was really hard and not one group did accept us. So then, you know, that's when I got more into like, let's do acting, let's do all the other things. I would stay behind with teachers. I was definitely like a teacher's pet. Because I find like they were the only ones that were like really nice to me and would let me take home toys and stuff like that. I think they saw that I was like by myself a lot.
I mean, that's hard. It's hard feeling like, if you feel like you don't know who you are, if you feel like you don't know where you belong, to me, that's one of the most scariest places that someone can exist, because you feel like you are not allowed to exist.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're not allowed to exist, then it's just very dangerous. It's very scary.
Yeah. No, it is scary. And when I see like, for instance, the Trevor Project, you know, talk about youth suicides and stuff like that. I mean, thank the universe that I never, ever considered anything like that as a young child.
You were like, my movie does not end this way.
No, but I do remember praying and asking why I was like the way I was, and, you know, didn't really fully understand why was I placed in this world but so different, or had different thoughts, and even like a clear understanding of what people were at the time, you know, and I just didn't understand why. I didn't understand cruelty. Like, it just didn't.
Yeah.
You know.
And people still are very much like that. Like middle school was such a rough time for me. Like, I don't know why girls were so mean.
I think, yeah, young kids can be the meanest.
Yeah.
And without any like anyone reprimanding them, and you know, because parents will be like, oh, well, they're just kids, you know.
It's really, you know, it sucks because, you know, usually if a young person's bullying, if anyone is bullying, it's mostly because they're having an aversion themselves to something that they see in that other person, or they feel that they need to make someone else feel the pain that they're feeling.
Totally.
And it would be so lovely if, you know, when someone is bullying, that not only do they end up, you know, acknowledged for like what they're doing that's wrong, but then like have someone really look into where it's coming from.
Right.
I've been reading Oprah's book, What Happened to You, that she's written with this guy, Dr. Bruce Perry.
Well, that already just sounds so powerful. Like,
if you can figure out what happened to you, what happened to someone else, it's a game changer.
Right.
They talk about that a lot with young students, and like, a teacher will go, I did this and they just started acting out. And it's like, really, you think a 5-year-old just started acting
No,
out?
there's always a story.
Yeah.
And there's always like, something that happened. And I don't know if this is through the work that I've done personally. I went to this program called Hoffman, and they teach you how to like look at your child self, and they teach you to look at your parents' child self. And I always do that with people that have been my bullies in my life. And I do always come at it with a compassionate kind of feeling, like they must have been so hurt to inflict that type of pain, because even though I was hurt as a child, I had never got to a point where I wanted to hurt someone else. So I can't imagine what they were feeling, maybe the loneliness and all the things, for them to be able to actually hurt someone, to be like, I need to feel, look at me as well.
Yeah.
And that's super interesting. And you said you experienced that during middle school and kind of...
Most of middle school, but even like, recently as an adult, I experienced someone unintentionally like calling me a name, like calling me a loser. And for being brave, no less, for being bold and brave about something that was very serious. And they inadvertently, because they didn't think they were sending a message to a space where I was included, they called me a loser. And, as I continued to sit with it, I was like, that is such a mean girl high school word and thing to say and do. And really all it does is tell me a lot about that person.
1,000%. And was it someone that you maybe considered a friend, or just someone that you just didn't think, why are you thinking about me like that anyways?
It was a group of people who I had just met, and it was someone who I had experienced like a closeness with in this like setting, and someone I didn't think would use that word to describe me.
Or anyone.
Anyone.
Because who says that now? Like, we're grown and we've matured in life experience. Like, that kind of thing, it just seems so foreign to me. Like,
yeah.
To actually, for what? Why are you doing that? Like, why are you calling someone that? The energy that it takes for yourself. That actually happened to me before. I was in London and I took this picture, and I look back, and this girl that I know, she worked in PR, and I've helped her throughout her career. Like, I got her like a couple of jobs, and she was always at like my venues. She was always calling me, hey, queen, can we sit with you, drinking at my table? I actually always thought she was kind of like lovely, but didn't really know her besides that part, the club part, the parties, and going to her events to support, whatever client she had. And she wrote, wow, who let that tranny through the gates?
Where?
I was in London, and I just posted a photo, but what happened was, I know a friend sent her the picture, probably to make a comment about it, and then she thought she was replying to the friend. She replied to me. And I said, I bet you didn't mean to write that, did you? To me. I said, yeah, I bet you didn't mean to write that to me. And she goes, I didn't, but queen, I'm just joking. You know how we do. Or didn't even apologize. Was just like, you know how we are, something like that. I said, no. And then I sat with what she said and the meanness behind it.
Yeah.
And it took me like 4 days. I just kind of sat with it. And I was like, don't even feed into that. And then I thought, well, all the things I sort of talk about, am about, preach about, in a sense, is to stand up for yourself, expose bullying when it happens. And I said, you have to bring this up. And I reposted her on Instagram. Yeah. And I said, all the things, I was only ever nice to this person. Help them get a job, like always supportive. Whatever they call me, will you please come to my party? will you please do this? Will you please bring your friends? Sure, girl, yeah. And then here you have this like hateful, mean girl kind of thing to say. And it went wild. Like, Page Six picked it up.
Oh. Did you put the person who it
Oh,
was?
yeah.
Oh.
And like a photo side by side of us together, like her own photo.
Oh my gosh.
Got one, put it together.
I love this.
And then all the things. And then I left it. I was in Italy, like in the countryside, so I just left it. And then I didn't have internet. And then I looked, and I actually was like, ooh. And it had blown up, and everyone was writing comments. And people were writing me separately saying that I'm so happy because I work with this girl, and she's a bully, and she's mean, and she does say these things, and you never know who her friends are. So a lot of that spoke to a lot more people than just me.
Well, I really applaud you for that, because I think that it's difficult sometimes to call out the actual person for something that they've done when they've assaulted you in any way. And I think what you did was not, what's the difference between that person doing it to you privately and then you sharing it publicly? If who you are behind closed doors is not who you want the world to see,
right,
then maybe you should rethink some things.
Totally.
So good on you for doing that. I don't know if I would have the I'm going to do it, but I am inspired.
I remember writing it, and I remember going to a corner in this house, like I said, in the countryside in Italy, like no internet. And I like posted it, and like at first it was very slow, and I was like, ooh. And then when it finally posted, then I couldn't get on the internet again. And I think that was like some sort of like universal thing working for me. And then it kind of blew up, and then like I said, Page Six wrote about it, and she lost her job. And that was just something, when you put something negative out into the universe, there's ripple effects.
Yeah.
And that was hers. And, I think, and hopefully all, people are like, do you not like her? Do you not this? I said, no, but I hope that she learns from this.
Yeah.
I hope that she knows words are powerful and can be hurtful, because it did hurt me, because it was shocking to me that I thought someone that liked me didn't, or, was doing something else. And there was really no reason for it. I was like trying to think, was I ever not a mean person? I was only ever supportive. And so it was a shock to the system. And I'm definitely glad I still put it out there, because I think bullying should always, have a light on it, because it goes along with like anything else, like, people feeling like shamed or sad that they're being bullied, and are also maybe people don't even think a person like me would get bullied or have things said. And but there's more things that I don't post that people write, and it's just someone that I don't know, and so that doesn't really matter to me. This affected me in that kind of way, which is shocking, but I think I'm stronger for it. And I kind of always think of the people that came before me that had to deal with much worse. In New York, in the 50s and all the things, they used to just arrest you if they had just an inclination that you might be gay, or you wore any type of women's clothing. And so I think about that often, and that kind of gives me strength to just be myself every single day and show up. Now I know we've talked about acting, and do you find that like it's harder for you as like a young Black woman to either get roles, or I know you and I talked about like wanting to direct as well. And I often think about you and directing, because I just think it's such a calling for you.
Thank you.
Of course. No, and I think obviously we need more women minds, more creativity from young Black women like yourself, to just kind of show what they've got. And I think hopefully studios and people that make those decisions really see that, it works, and it's time to like give space for that. And do you find like, have you been given the right opportunities? Or are you finding it still to just be a struggle? Because as much as you've done a lot, and like a lot.
You know, it's so interesting. Yeah, I've been working professionally for more than half my life at this point.
It's wild.
It is wild. And I've had a very successful, steady, earned career. I've not had any kind of like overnight anything.
No.
I have just like kept my head down and forward and like done the things, been like, shown up and done my job at every single job and been kind to every person.
Yeah.
And I always knew that, like even before I started acting professionally, my mom had given me this. I was an American Girl obsessed. And
the doll?
Like the whole company, like anything American Girl.
Oh, you didn't have a mop?
I didn't have a mom.
I got my American Girl.
Sorry.
Yeah. My mom was an American Girl too.
Yeah, she's totally an American Girl.
She's missing face and clothes and arms and things.
Yeah, and like a book. And
Yeah.
maybe, oh my gosh, how amazing would that be as a children's book?
Mop.
I would read it.
Yeah, well,
And
later on,
buy
a
it.
friend did. I showed up to my house once, and there was a blinged out mop.
That's
And
really
said,
sweet.
I think it was like something about new beginnings, and here's your new Tina. And it was, and I actually, you know, I haven't told that to very many people, and I don't remember telling her. And I told my sister, and I was like, mop. I go, you know, my friend Katie, I was like, Katie got me a mop and it's bedazzled. And my sister's like, what? Like, how is mop back in our lives? Like, I don't even know.
I love it.
So you were American Dolls.
American Girl.
American Girl.
Obsessed. Yeah. And I had everything. And I had a little like, it's like a digital version of a Super 8 and it came with a software. And I would make little movies. And this was way before I started acting. I guess I was like 11 or 12.
Oh, wow.
And then I started acting professionally and like, I was in that world and I always thought, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. And I do feel a calling to do this and,
Right.
and be in this part of the entertainment industry. And then I've slowly noticed like, wow, over the years, the person I gravitate towards the most on a set are directors, are costumes, our production design,
Yeah.
kind of the people like creating the thing at DPs,
The
people
world.
creating the thing that
Yeah.
like you see, and I'm like, wow, that's so interesting. So I started deciding like, yeah, this is something I want to pursue, and I've had different ways of trying to learn more about directing, and I've definitely attempted to direct.
I mean, for me, I really quickly, just hearing you talk, but you have done so much acting, and like, I think you're a phenomenal actress, and watching you, I've known you for a long time. I've never put the two together, like your acting career and yourself when we're together. So when I see you, I'm just watching that character in that moment that you've created as something totally separate, and it's so beautiful.
Thank
But
you.
I do think that actors make the better director because they know how to get an actor to a point, you know, and I think that would be perfect.
I think that maybe not every actor wants to do it.
Right, I'm sure.
I think like anything in this industry in particular, like you have to actually want to do it. And I think what I've learned is that something my therapist said to me when I was telling her like what I wanted, and then I thought I would get this opportunity and this opportunity, and she's like, why? Why did you think that you would? And I was like, because men get it all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, but you bring up a good point.
But I like when you say it, because and also people might assume because you've had all this success, you're handed things all the time. What do you want? Anything? Okay, gold platter, here you go. You know, and it's not the case as you
well,
said.
the one thing that my therapist kind of like helped me to realize is like, yeah, maybe like being handed, I mean, I haven't been handed anything when
Right.
it comes to acting. So like, would it even be fulfilling having something just given to me? And like, would I feel as confident as I am feeling now that I'm actually writing the things and creating the things that I want to do and put out in the world, and like doing trial by fire, and like
Yeah.
now I'm attempting it in a way that is kind of just figuring it out versus walking up and being like, I think I deserve this. Now, granted, I would have still loved that opportunity.
Right.
But I accept this part of my story and I accept this journey. And I am more fulfilled trying it this way.
Right. Because the journey is probably the most important part, like any wise person would say.
And you know what? It's forcing me to figure out what story I really want to tell.
Yeah.
Like, what stories do I really want to tell? And like, one of the things I'm doing, like my next step is making my short. And so right now I'm watching, like, every day I watch at least like 4 to 5 shorts.
And how long is a short?
It can be anywhere from like 9 to 11 minutes to like 30 minutes.
Right.
And so I try to watch, award nominated shorts or award winning shorts, but everything. And one of the things I've noticed is a lot of times the ones that win awards and are nominated for awards are really violent. They're really violent, and they really like they always kind of surprise you and shock you in a way that is like such a big moment that you can't help but go, wow, you really did something there. And to me, I look at the world and I'm like, we're in a town where we're creating culture.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're making art that is like so violent all the time, and that's the thing that's like people are like attached to and drawn to, then like how can you be surprised?
Yeah, of what movies they're picking.
Or what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
How can you be surprised? Now, granted, like a lot of the things I watch, like those things are always very plausible and very like poignant and powerful. And I'm not saying they shouldn't exist. I just am saying when I look at the scope.
Was that violence needed to tell your story?
Or not even that. Why is it that the ones that get the most attention have this through line?
Right.
Why is that the through line? Not that they shouldn't exist. All of these things should exist because people are like telling the stories that they want to tell. But like,
and violence is real in life, and that's a story, someone's story to tell.
It's just the most recent thing I have found that is like a through line that I find shocking and interesting, and infers the story that I want to tell. Because I go, oh, I need to do this in order to get noticed. Mm. I need to make something like this to get noticed. But then I ask myself, what do I really want to put into the world, and what do I really want to change about culture?
Right.
And then that infers the story that I want to tell. So that's where I am presently in figuring out like that.
But I often see things that are nominated and people will be like, didn't you love that? And I'm like, no. I mean, I could totally see that this scene and this scene and this scene were specifically made for this award. Like they went for these awards, or the violence. Sometimes it's not needed. Sometimes I think the way they do a sex scene, when you can do it very beautifully, you can tell the story. You can tell the story of being hit, of being brutally beaten without, I think, putting it so gruesomely out there. And there's a lot of directors that do that. I just can't stand for myself gore for gore. Yeah. Just to have it. And
it's also kind of like, to me, I find it sometimes a violent act in itself when you are luring me in with something that's so flowery and such a story that I can really connect with, and you've like really pulled me in, and you've taken my guard down. I find it a violent act in itself to give me such a violent shock in the experience of watching something like that. Yeah. And I don't want to like call out or point out any fingers to the last couple of like shorts that I've watched, but I accept them for what they were, but I just go like, you hurt me. Like I watch it and I'm like, you actually like, I'm hurt watching this. Yeah. Like what? That's what I thought I was like leaving with something beautiful and like.
And did you really just do that?
And it shifted me in a way that's like, oh wow, now those images are in my mind. Yeah. And I mean, even the way that our dreams work. That's why it's so important to read. Mm-hmm. Because when you read, imagining things,
Yeah.
and that's what creates the opportunity for your dreams. Watching movies, you're being given images and settings and like configurations in ways that, yeah, you can infer them on your own in your dreams, but more than likely those themes and those images in some way are going to like affect you. You're not,
Right.
maybe you might not see that actual thing, but that's going to show up. That's going to find that like broken, weak, scared part of you.
Of course.
And it's going to amplify it. And then that creates a dangerous culture. That is why.
I think so too. I have a lot of friends that are just like obsessed with murder movies.
That's
Like,
weird.
No, it is weird to me. Like one of my best friends is obsessed with watching like horror and murder, and I know like some people just love it. But I'll walk through the living room and I just either have my headphones in and I will not look at the screen because, for myself at least, I'm very affected by things that I listen to and that I see in life. Already am traumatized by the news every day. So what follows after that is going to be heavily loaded with Deepak Chopra. Like I told you, I listen to Jay Shetty and all these kind of things. And like visually what I watch on TV, it's got to be something that feeds for myself. Not everyone has a different process. Maybe people get lost in the fantasy of gore and all the things. But for me, I can't have that constant visual of, blood and guts and murder and someone being stalked.
Yeah.
Because
like, granted, I've also, like, I've done thrillers. Like, I gotta be
you actually
honest.
did do
I've
a
done
thriller,
thrillers.
actually.
Which is why I'm saying, like, people are allowed to make the content that they
it
want.
could be smart and thought-provoking and all the things, and or it could just be gore, 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 gore. But I get that,
I just don't, I guess for me, I just go, like, why is that what wins? Why is the pain what wins? Even,
yeah.
like, when you look at, like, when people of color, when queer people win awards, why is it that they've had to like be the most broken version of themselves in order to win?
I often think that too. Like, I'm like, wait, but why did they have to go through that crazy instead of like just a beautiful story? Because there's so many. It's the human experience.
Yeah.
There's not just one-sided. Like, I don't have to play like transgender hooker who like loses her way and then like has to cut/stab her way through Chicago for me to get noticed and accepted and all the things.
Someone's ready to make that movie.
Right.
They're like, oh my god, yes.
And it's me starring in it later. Like, I told you I didn't want to do this. But it is a lot of that, and I really hope with the future of filmmaking that there are just more humanized roles with all marginalized communities. Like there's so many different stories of upbringings, and maybe one of a little boy, soon to be trans woman who has a mop as a friend.
I mean,
that's a story.
I could. It's a very. Hearing that, it actually does sound like I see A24 behind it. Like it sounds like a really wonderful movie.
Did you see the movie Room?
Yes.
It was a while ago, and it's I forget the actress. She's amazing, but she has a little son that she has in like this sort of kidnapped captivity situation, and when the little boy's walking around the room and going, "Good night, chair. Good night, this. Good night, moon," it just. There was like something in my childhood self that was very much that. Like the things around me were important to me because that's all I had. So that like broke my heart in such like almost a really endearing way that a child can still find as much as friendship in those items, or things around them. And he made that kind of world for himself, and I thought that was really special. Me going back to my childhood again. So we talked a lot about different things, about storytelling, about our place in film and in this industry. And I talked to you a lot about not feeling like I belonged in any certain place. And I've known I know you've touched in interviews about. And this really like spoke to me immediately when, in school, in history books, you don't see yourself at all. You don't see a place, like, it's not like you see Logan Browning as president, or someone that you could see yourself as, because, we know our presidents that we've had in the past, and it doesn't always match up. Different careers of people in power doesn't always match up to, I would say, the everyday American child, which is a melting pot of different races and backgrounds and cultures. How do we begin to teach or to give that young person, queer, mixed race, alone, like, how do we let them see a future for themselves? Or is that a heavy undertaking, actually?
I mean,
where does it start?
I don't think that a January 6th would have happened if our history books looked differently than they do. And I mean
Agreed.
that in a lot of ways. And first, not only are history books leaving out people who've done incredible things. I mean, let's run the gamut of kinds and types of people who've done incredible things, but also the things that have happened to them are a watered down version. So you are left with a book that leaves a certain group of people in America feeling like this is theirs.
Right.
And that is...
And in a certain way, written in a way where it's rightfully theirs. You know, like what I mean? Like, they don't explain the taken part,
Absolutely.
the bloodshed part.
Absolutely.
And all the things, I want to say, I was naive to the fact of, I didn't know Christopher Columbus, that whole story of, of the enslaving people, all the things, because it's so watered down or colored in a certain way. It was cool that he came here, he made a discovery, and, kind of feeds into a child's dream of discovering things. I want to go off on a boat and discover things. Oh, but what happens after that?
I want to go off.
Kind of things, be adventurous, and that kind of feeds into that mind. But that's not what it was at all.
Yeah, no, it was not.
And, to not being told that, I kind of feel duped, lied to. And, we do have a different history that's being taught. And I think that just kind of it doesn't, I don't think it helps anyone other than maybe a 1% group.
Well, the other thing that it doesn't help is it keeps people stuck in a certain place. So if you feel like you are the first person or the second person to have ever done something, crossed a territory, then you feel that your struggle is impossible, and you don't see a map laid out before you of how someone else might have gotten there. And history books in particular are just what is taught in schools is such a minuscule version of what is actually reality. Yeah. And I see that when we talk about culture and filmmaking, I see that played up all of the time. It's why a movie like Hidden Figures meant so much to me, because if I had read about those women in my history book, then maybe I would have been in STEM. But it just
totally. And that movie was, oh my God, it blew my mind. And I'm like, how is this not taught in schools?
The other thing is I see roles all the time that come into my inbox that I just am not interested in, because they're continuing to perpetuate and create a culture that is just not true. What is, I see these period pieces, and some period pieces literally come in my inbox, and I go, you have placed these characters, because they look a certain way, in a setting that's just false. You've stripped them of things that are unfair.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me frustrated. It makes me sad. And the best I can do is not be the person to tell the story. But what upsets me is that someone else is, and that movie's gonna get made, those shows are gonna get made, and that is shaping the culture, and that like doubles down on what we've all been taught is real. I'm like trying my best not to like say one thing that's like be very specific, but like something got sent into my inbox and I wanted to send back like 25 different Black women of the time who were in that position. That is just like, it makes it not, it's just inaccurate.
Right.
It's inaccurate.
Right. But you can also probably see, and I'm sure you've seen so many of these types of scripts where you start reading, you're like, oh, I know where they're going to take it. And it's just going to be kind of like the same thing.
The sick part for me is that people actually, it's what they want. It's what they want to watch. It's what they get off on. It's what makes them feel comfy and safe. And bothers me.
Yeah, it should. It should spark something in you, because I think that's the only way to create real change, and will only like make your storytelling that much more vibrant and something to say. And I'm looking forward to seeing your storytelling, because I think there's something very special in you, and like just what you've done so far. And I think you've got a long, long way to go. And I think just putting the seed out there is already starting something. And I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Thank you.
Broadway included.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know what I mean?
I want it so bad.
I want that for you. I mean, I'm such a like Broadway fiend. Like, you should see my house from morning to end. I'm singing about like taking cookies out of the oven. Just kidding, I don't eat cookies. You know, all the things. And it's just like, I love that world, and I think it's so amazing. Do you sing a lot? Like, besides you being a singer, but like, do you sing around the house? It's constant for me.
It's so unfortunate that I don't even really consider myself a singer. Like, I've obviously sung on Dear White People in our musical episodes or season, but like even I danced for 4 seasons on Hit the Floor, and I have a difficult time considering myself a dancer. Even as an actor, I'm like, I've done this my whole life, and I'm an actor, question mark? I'm very Ron Burgundy about it.
Yeah, I guess because you're in it and you're doing it. You're also you with all real life stuff as well. But yeah, you are an actress, dancer, singer, very much so. I'm very established in those rights, and it's cool, very cool. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, Marsha. It's not the nightclub you knew at night, but it is the nightclub we know during the day.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Okay, Logan, I know that you're involved with a charity that really spoke to me when I saw this on your page. And actually, they'd reached out to me to be part of their panel as well. And it's called Stomp Out Bullying. And we've touched on how I've been bullied. Does bullying ever actually really stop? I guess in a certain way, it's not the same. But I mean, it's out there. And how did you get involved with Stomp Out Bullying?
I got involved with Stomp Out Bullying when I was invited to be on a panel, and I had never like done anything with them. And I was like, oh wow, this is great. I'm gonna go to New York. Like, Nick Cannon was the moderator, and the other people on the couch were also incredible. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And one of my favorite things about being a panelist is really listening to everybody else and what they're saying. And I found that one to be very fruitful. And so I just continued to do everything Ross wanted me to do. I just continued to like do it because I appreciate what that organization does in so many ways. I mean, like the things that they do are, they do programs with schools where, you know, they have like actual like literature that goes into the schools and ways to help
handle their
Yeah,
bullies.
they do a lot. It's not just like celebrities on a video saying things. They're a really great organization. So
I mean, which is also okay. So I used to have like I would take friends and we would go serve food to the homeless through the Red Cross. And people would write me and they're like, that person's only there because they want to take a photo or they want it on their Instagram. And I said, I don't care if they take 100 photos. At least they're there.
yeah, it's
You
great.
know, at least they're there to show up. And a lot of time it is just showing up does so much for like young kids or whatever charity that you're involved with, because people just, I think at the end of the day, want to be seen, you know. And I wanted to talk about, we talked about like the importance of like having different ethnicities and different stories in history. And now we're here at charities. Like, what are some of the actual things that we can do to help other people, children, feel like they fit in? I mean, I guess for myself, you know, when I walk into a room, I kind of like, I told you earlier when we started, like, my meditation is part of my armor. I do actually know a program that teaches meditation in schools, and I think that really does help. Are there anything else that you can think of, like, on how us people in general can be more active in our youth, learning about themselves, learning about like having a place for them in history, like where they can start seeing themselves in places like powerful positions, you know, be the doctor, be the president, be the astronaut, you know?
I mean, it's all about who's writing the material, like who's writing the literature, and not just what that person looks like, but who they're having to answer to.
Yeah.
So, like, history books aren't just like someone who goes, you know what, I'm gonna do today? I'm gonna write a history book. Like,
Right.
there are things in place that limit them from doing.
All of those things.
Yeah, and so it
yeah.
always will boil down to who people are voting for.
Totally.
And I mean, like, I don't mean that in like a presidential way. I mean like in a very local way.
Yes.
So locally, how people are voting will always impact things like your like district, your school boards, like and being involved. So it will boil down to parents.
Yeah.
Which sucks because I mean, like they're all. I mean, a parent already has so much to you know on their plate, but
Or they're having to think of the bigger picture and who am I helping to get placed into these positions that's going to help my child and children of the future. I mean, yeah, it is a lot to think about and a lot to do, but you can do it. There the research out there, and I know there's pamphlets that talk about each different type of political office there is, and there's so many, right down from like, you know, who is the auditor for the taxes of the city of Los Angeles. There's like that one person, but you are voting for that person because we get these ballots, and a lot of people, you know, look at the name maybe and they're like, oh, well, my mom's name is Suzanne, I'll vote for her. You know, kind of thing. I think people get into these positions.
What I do that I find really fun is when it comes time to voting, like, you know, they'll send you the thing in the mail that's like kind of everyone who's whatever. I like just spend time, like not in one day. You can't do this in one day. I just spend time going through each person and like you literally Google everything else. You Google why your left knee hurts. You Google why, like, does ear loss correlate with me running too much? Like, you Google everything else.
You can research a person you just met, or you tell your friends, like, give me his name and whole bit, I'll get all the information.
Literally that. So I go through and every single person, I just quick Google search. Usually they'll have, you know, a website or something for their campaign that pops up, and I'll just like, you know, look up a little bit about them, jot some notes down, go to the next person. And once I've gone through all those people, then I can make a decision. And you can take this with you when you go to vote. I take my whole pamphlet with me if I'm going to go vote in person, or you do it by mail, which is a lot easier, obviously. Yeah. But that makes it so much easier. So you're not playing a guessing game. You know, you actually can look and go, oh, yeah. I did look them up. And I do know what they stand for and how that would affect my community.
Yeah, I think it does start there. It starts with doing research on things that are important to you. And if, you know, and then this should be important to you, the future of children's education is like what's going to drive us. They're the ones that are going to be making these decisions later on. And so everyone should take part in this, and getting the right people into those offices and maybe start running for yourselves. Like,
And even
take position, take those offices.
but like even on a very, we were talking about this in film on a very like, we're in this town, we're in this industry creates culture. Like kids watch movies.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about all of the kinds of films that kids are watching, what they see, what they don't see, what they're like absorbing, and also adults. Like it's because adults are gonna then talk to the kids, and that is why that's why this town is so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just us like playing make believe and playing dress up. We're actually creating culture
and change.
Well,
hopefully.
We're creating a lot of stuff.
Right,
I mean,
right.
like we're just throwing it all out there and
Right.
seeing what sticks. It's like a bunch of like pasta trying to see if it's
Totally.
done.
And I guess the only change comes is when, it's actually focused and the projects that are important and that should be out there do get made and happen. Oh my God, I found this so interesting that during the pandemic that Dear White People surge went up 400%.
I heard 600, but
Oh, I mean, but that number is wild, right?
yeah.
And you also said people were looking for answers and they found it in our show.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, our show came out at the beginning of 2016, 2017-ish. Like it was there.
Right.
And I think everyone in there like trying to learn how to be an ally and trying to learn how to like interact with people in this time. We're like, where can I go? Oh, wow. All I have to do is turn on Netflix.
Yeah.
How convenient.
Yeah.
So it was nice that, our show got a few extra eyeballs and hopefully like gave people a space to explore something meaningful.
Yeah, maybe give them something that sparks something in them, or maybe they didn't know about.
Oh my gosh, all the time. Even like us in the show, like I will speak for myself, and I can also speak for John Patrick, who played Gabe on the show. He would say something to me and go like, I actually didn't know that until the show talked about it. Or like, for me, I remember dealing with Sam, dealing with her light skin privilege, and it was something that I honestly, up until that point, had never really unpacked. Right. And I mean, and also we were just doing it in a way, Justin would always, kind of talk about this, like we're getting people laughing in order to get their mouths open to like receive the medicine. And that's what I loved about the show is like, we dealt with a lot of backlash when our show first came out. Because of the title. Right. And our show is such that if you were to just watch the first episode, you would understand why the title is the way it is and that it's all satirical.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that I got to be a part of that. It helped me start the journey of who am I, and in a way that's, I'm still like, I will play back things that my character said and go, wow, that means something different to me now.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful to have, like, for yourself. Like you said, you've learned things. And, I mean, obviously we're constantly, hopefully, always learning about ourselves. And you're going to be a different Logan than you are now 10 years from now, and hopefully we're still on that journey together. And you could do another Marsha. Not in 10 years, though.
Hopefully.
Well, thank you so much again for taking the time and sitting with me. And I think I've learned some things, and hopefully the listeners learned some things. And let's just all be nicer to each other, I think, is the big lesson. Everyone has feelings and everyone is dealing with stuff in the world. And I think we just need to be kinder to each other, and just, if someone pisses you off, just kind of think about why, and, just also let things go and just be loving.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everyone listening, and stay tuned for another episode of Marsha. So these are just Marsha libs and things I came up with. They're just 5 questions, and you finish the sentence or the blank space My hero is blank.
My mom.
Amidst all the chaos, I center myself by...
Breathing.
Breathing is so important. It really is.
You forget to and you're like, ah!
I mean, even in the car in traffic, you're just like tense, and I'll just go breathe, and it really...
Breathing is so sexy. Like if you really take the time to breathe and acknowledge your breath and acknowledge that, I mean, it's...
a game changer.
It is. It's so special.
Once the awareness is there. I mean, obviously it doesn't happen all the time. I obviously tense up sometimes, but... If I could do something just once without any risk, I would... No risk. No consequence.
I would... Oh my gosh, everything I'm saying is problematic in my head. Oh my gosh. Think
All
of
the things that
something.
come through.
Think of something less of an issue. God, what's wrong with me? What's the question again?
If you can do anything without any consequence or risk, that means like even jumping off like Mount Whitney or something.
I've already gone skydiving, so I'm like, what? Something to me that would be more risky would be like putting putting myself out there in a way. You know what it would be? It would be having a public relationship.
Bam. Got it. I love it.
Oh, poor me.
Okay, listen. When I want to challenge you're like, I go to the last question. When I want to challenge myself, I do Marsha libs.
When I want to challenge myself, I literally, this is going to sound so lame. I just drive a different direction, literally in my car. I just like go somewhere different. If I'm like, I really want the pad thai from Butcher's Daughter, I go, then you can't have it. And I go somewhere else. That sounds so like first world and lame, but it really is what I do.
No, but I mean, we all have to create things that change things up for ourselves, you know, like, I mean, if I am a little scared of something, I mean, a lot of things, I think, you know, if I don't want to go somewhere publicly, sometimes I just go. Or even traveling, I can travel alone. You know, if I'm in a different country, I'll go running around, you know, and you don't always want to. Sometimes you just want to stay safe and like wherever you are. But, you know, it's good to get out there and change it up, even if it's
Have you had the pad thai?
I was going to say.
It's really good.
It's really good. You should really get it. And when you don't let yourself have it, it's a challenge. And then, okay, last one, I am blank.
I am... No, I'm just singing, I'm everyone. That's what I'm singing in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am...
Every woman.
I literally am every woman.
Yeah.
That is literally my answer.
So you do sing to everything. I know it. I know it's in there. I sing to every little thing. A cup of water gets passed to me. There's a song coming right after that. Well, thank you so much again. And is there anything else you want to share? Where can we find you on Instagram?
Don't find me.
Don't come looking for me.
I'm at Logan Larice on Instagram, Twitter, and the TikToks.
I love it. Follow her and follow me. Logan is out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
This podcast is brought to you by Vocal Podcast Network. Executive producers are Michaela Simon and Marsha Molinari. Produced by Yonta Taiwo and Morgan McDonald. Shooting and editing by Morgan McDonald. Music by Aaron Reese. Artwork by Dominic Demetz. And hosted by Marsha Molinari. Remember to follow at Marsha Molinari and at Vocal Podcasts everywhere. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast.